Get ready for truth bombs and guidance from conservative leaders and entrepreneurs from God-fearing, freedom-loving, truth-telling, patriotic Americans. Welcome to Patriots with Grit. Now let's jump into today's episode with your host, Darren Ross.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Patriots with Grit, where we bring you truth bombs and guidance from conservative leaders and entrepreneurs. I'm Darren Ross, your host. This is my co-host, producer, and Rush Limbaugh wannabe, Randy Mansell. And you know what? We have had an absolute blast interviewing all these conservative school board candidates.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our goal is to try to get them as much coverage and as much help as we can. We need good conservative school board candidates on these public school boards. And today, we have a great story and a great interview lined up. We are bringing on a guest. It's another warrior mom from the Rockwood School District in Eureka, Missouri, down by St. Louis. Her name is Izzy Imig. Now, Izzy was born and raised in Baghdad, Iraq. She has an incredible story. She fought for the U.S. military. She told me she took a bullet in the stomach for our military, and she decided after she moved here and became a U.S. citizen to get really involved in the public school system. She has 3 awesome daughters and a great husband, and so I'm going to welcome her to the show right now. Welcome, Izzy Imig from Rockwood.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for agreeing to be on this interview with us today. We've had some fantastic interviews, and we wanted to save some of the best stories for till the last. But when you and I had our pre-interview questions, some of the things you told me I was just blown away by. So, so we met basically through social media and through some interview or some acquaintances from friends and stuff like that. But so how long have you actually been here in the Rockwood School District? And then let's get into your story.
I've been in let's see, my daughter is in 7th grade, so almost 8 years, and but in the country since 2006. So long.
So let's kind of rewind and go back to when Izzy Imig was born and raised in Baghdad, Iraq. Walk us through that whole process. Maybe give us a little bit of background on growing up there with Saddam Hussein, and then how in the world you made it working with the U.S. military, and now you're basically living in Missouri.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I normally share my story with the Rockwood high schools, and the high schoolers always ask me how did you get here? I mess with them like, on the plane, But yeah, I was born and raised in Iraq, Baghdad. I was born in the mid-'80s, right into the Iraq-Iran war. By the time I was in 1st grade, so that was 1991, that's the Gulf War, that's like the other war. All I know is wars, and we're so used to it in our country that every time there's a war, our world will be on hold for a second, and then we just go back to school, we go back to work and whatnot. Some of my earliest memories, I remember, so my mother was a teacher, and I remember we were running late to go to school, and on the way there we heard a giant boom. And walking, by the way, we walked, we don't have buses like we do here. We walk a good 3-4 miles, and we got there, and sure enough, my school was bombed. So those are some of the earliest memories. Fast forward to 2003, I don't really call that a war. I really do call that Operation Iraqi Freedom, because it did really free us from Saddam and everything that he was doing to his own people. So Saddam did a great job of shielding our country at the time. And we weren't even allowed to have satellite dish in our homes. If someone was caught with a satellite dish, they get slaughtered. We didn't have internet. We didn't have access to cell phones or anything. We didn't have that. Just whatever he would tell us. So we were taught, that the Americans, the Western world, were just going to come and kill us all and take our oil. And really, right before that war, he talked about how we were going to fight, the U.S. and until the last man standing, he was nowhere to be found, literally hiding in a hole. So I'm watching these guys, remember, like, I've never seen Americans before, other than the movies, what he would allow us to see. And yes, we did do have TVs, but probably we had only like 2 channels at the time. And he would let us like watch movies of, America, like a movie in Chicago, like people killing each other, like a Batman movie or whatever. So my thought was, oh, Americans are crazy. All they do is kill each other. Until, they got there, and I'm watching these guys going from, or going through the neighborhoods, and their weapons are not even pointed at people, they're pointed down, and they were handing out soccer balls and candy to the children, and they're just friendly and just chatting with people. So one day they had a big operation where they came through my neighborhood and they were searching for weapons. They came to my door, knocked on the door, and gave me a piece of paper and that said in Arabic, "Do you have any weapons?" At the time I answered the officer, I said, "No, we don't have any weapons." And he was like, "Wait, you speak English?" And I said, "Yes, most of us do." That's the other thing I really never understood, because Saddam hated the US and the Western world, yet we were required to learn English at age 8, which I guess that's 3rd grade here. So it's kind of crazy, like here you have a dictator, a psychopath, and education is like way up here. So that's basically how it started. And so then he asked if I would be willing to work with them as an interpreter. And at the time I was like, ooh, I thought they were all here to kill us. But, a few weeks into it, I kept watching them as I'm going to school, and I see how, again, they're rebuilding things and they're helping the people. So I decided one day to actually walk to that base where he told me he was stationed at, and just walk in there. By the way, it was a huge target on my back because I'm a girl, and as an 18-year-old girl, just not my back, my family's well. And I walked there and I told them, I was looking for that captain, and they radioed the second checkpoint, got to the second checkpoint, and a Humvee came to pick me up and, took me inside, asked me questions, and they were like, "Oh, can you start tomorrow?" And I was like, "Really?" And so, yeah, that's how I started working for them. Obviously, they did a lot of vetting and, made sure that I was not an enemy. I was just helping.
So this was around 2003.
Yes.
So then you actually started helping and working with the U.S. Army even more, correct? After being an interpreter?
Right.
Tell us a little bit about, originally when you and I spoke, you said that you actually took a bullet in the stomach for the U.S.
So a few months into it, we had a big mission. We had a checkpoint, and we were searching cars for weapons, and a sniper started shooting at us. One guy was shot in the leg. We were trying to drag him behind the Humvee, and that's when one of the guys said, "Hey, you're bleeding." And I looked down, and sure enough, and I passed out and woke up in the hospital. And it was just crazy. And my first thought was like, oh no, now my family's gonna find out. That picture, by the way, is after. That picture is my husband and I after that incident, and I went back. So my family showed up, and I showed them the amount of money I was saving, and all the morals and ethics went out of the window.
So you actually met your husband while he was stationed there in Iraq, correct? You were both there?
Yes. So yes, and there's a picture, I think, I don't know if you have it or not. So before masks were even a thing, when I would go on missions, yes, I would cover my face with that military bandana so people won't recognize me. And that's on the back of a Humvee, actually.
So you were in this picture right here, you were on a mission for the U.S.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So as time progresses, you meet your husband, and then walk us through a little bit, Izzy, on how you made it over here to the United States. I think you got married, I believe, was in 2006. Was that correct?
Yes.
Yes. How did you make it from there over to here? And then how did you get started, making your way as an American and a citizen and all that?
So at the time, the U.S. government actually offered people like me a special visa programs because I could never go back and live my normal life again. And a lot of the interpreters got here that way. So there was a time, so I worked with 2 male interpreters, and one of them was missing for a long time. And one day he showed up to the base with his head shaved. And I know in my culture, that's a form of a punishment. And he tried really hard to get me to leave the base, and there was something off about him. So normally we would shop for the soldiers. They would give us a list of things, and we would go to the Iraqi market and buy them a bunch of stuff. And I never, said no to them. I would never say no because they would give us a tip, $20 or $30. And again, that was a lot of money where I come from. And he tried really hard to get me to leave, and there was something off. So I kept saying no. So finally, I actually transferred from one camp to another, and I ended up at Camp Victory. And the other interpreter reached out to me and said, hey, I have a list of things to give the soldiers. Would you like to meet and go get them? And I said, sure. So boys and girls could not be friends where I come from. So we had a spot that I would go to and, meet him there. And then we go to the Iraqi market. And it was a last minute thing where I kind of called my 16-year-old sister and said, hey, do you want to go? And I'll give you that $20. She said, yeah, sure. So she went to the place where she was supposed to meet the other interpreter, except that he wasn't there. Two men were standing there, and they said, hey, Ether sent us. He's having car trouble. Now, after the military got there, now we have flip phones. And they were like, hey, he's on the phone here. You want to talk to him? Sure enough, he was on the other line. He told her, yeah, I sent them. I'm having car trouble. Just come with them. So she got in the car. She went with them and got to the place, and it's like a photo studio, like an old J.C. Penney studio. She walked in. Ether was actually on the floor with his hands tight and behind his back, and just a bunch of men sitting, holding weapons. She tried to leave. They pulled her back by her hair. All he said was, that's not Izzy. They shot him in the head, and they kept my sister. Now, I'm working for this unit, the PSYOP unit, and my husband now obviously was part of that unit at the time. And so my sister's missing, my mother calling me, freaking out, and it was just awful. I mean, and I'm trying to call her. She's not answering. I'm trying to call the interpreter. He's not answering. I'm like, everything's going through my mind. I'm like, what happened? Second day, I would say, no, third day, my father got a call from Al Qaeda, and they told him, hey, we have your daughter. You give us Izzy, we give you Aya back. And as a parent, like, imagine this today. I mean, so he told them, either way, I lose a daughter, keep the one you already have. So we were trying to buy time, in the process also. And so the Army, the unit I was working for, they did this big operation. After 6 days, they ended up finding my sister and, brought her to Camp Victory. They asked her a bunch of questions, and at the time, the military intelligence advised my parents to say, kind of spread the rumor that I was already killed. So then Al Qaeda would stop looking for me. So that's what they did. And so in the meantime, this guy that I worked with, my now husband, I couldn't stand, but he was there for me that whole time. And, that kind of turned into love, really. And so his deployment ended, and I just didn't want to stay and die. So I ended up going to, so applied for the visa, and then went from Iraq to Jordan and got here. 2006, we got married, and we now have 3 children and running for Rockwood School Board.
That's awesome. That is so cool. So when you came here, when you left Iraq, is your family to this day, are they safe over there, knowing that you moved away and you're a U.S. citizen?
So remember, we kind of spread that rumor that I was already killed.
Okay.
So
there you go. Okay. So they still think you're dead over there then?
A lot of people do.
Okay.
So we had to say, because there was price on my head, and because I'm a girl, it's like, how dare you do that? Went against everything. After I started working, my brother started working for the U.S. Army as well. And so I moved here. A couple of years later, he moved here, and then he sponsored my sister. I'm one of 7, by the way. And then my sister moved. Well, they're all in Texas. And then, that's how we ended up here. And I'm in Missouri because obviously my husband's from here.
So you have quite the backstory. You have quite the history. So, I mean, born and raised in Baghdad, Iraq, fought for the U.S. Army. Now you're running for the school board of a school district in Missouri. So tell us, Izzy, about any current activity you've had at the school level or the school district, what involvement you've had, and then, tell us some of the reasons why you decided as a mom to get involved and run for school board.
So, I have been involved since my daughter started. I would say like 8 years ago, I've been plugged in, involved. I love what we have here. Like people have no idea how great it is. And, we have one of the best school districts. And I love that about our district. And we have a great legacy. And if you ask a lot of people how they ended up here, they'll say it's because of Rockwood, And so I've been plugged in, and I have been part of the PTO or, volunteer through the schools. And I would go to the high schools and share my story there. So it's not just my daughter's schools. I would say in the last couple of years, and COVID didn't help, there were a lot of things that happened where I was just like, wait a second, why is the focus kind of like shifted to we're not really focused on academics anymore? And last year was kind of a big year for me. So we ended up actually sponsoring my mother. She had cancer, and I was helping my sister kind of traveling back and forth to take care of her. She was in Dallas, and so she passed away. So last year I wasn't really plugged in as much. And so after I got back, and with COVID, I decided to go to one of the board meetings. And as I'm sitting there, I see one parent after another parent get up there and just to talk about what's going on. And I was just shocked, the amount of issues that we had. And then I asked some of my friends, I'm like, wait, do they get back to you? Like, what, really,
Sound familiar?
And I was just literally shocked. And they would just say, no, we have been fighting for 19 months and this doesn't go anywhere. And I was just like, something has to happen. And after that one board meeting, I decided to run. I only went to one. And I was like, something needs to change. Like this is, and again, we're not going to change everything. I know COVID it really did affect everybody, and they tried their best. I'm not going to throw the whole district under the bus, but I was just shocked at how the lack of communications and just the lack of care.
So I think you said the first meeting you went to was November of 2021, and December of 2021 you filed to run for school board. Is that right?
Yes.
So don't you think, Izzy, that the whole COVID thing was just a big wake-up call, not only for Rockwood, but for schools nationwide and for parents?
Yes. That's, I think you talk about the silver lining. Now we had our kids doing school from home, and a lot of parents who, would talk about, hey, did your kid just hear what my kid heard about this book? Or did your teacher just say this out loud? And I'm like, oh my goodness, wait, did you, so we had that, and we had like group texts, and we would just text each other. Did you hear that correctly? So that a lot of that came out through, the virtual school. And I'll have to say, like, we live in the middle of nowhere, and virtual school was so bad, we could barely log in. And even with the district offered hotspots that didn't even work. And there were days where like, what? It doesn't matter. Log in. Let's just go outside. That we did a lot of that because it just wouldn't work. And there were days that we would be in a parking lot of any school just to get to their, kind of try to get some Wi-Fi so my kids can get some school. It was insane. And I had to literally give up my job because my husband is the main breadwinner, and he had to work from home. And I had to give up my job because I have 3 daughters, and my last one in kindergarten. I literally had to sit next to her and just kind of go through some of the stuff.
So Izzy, when these parents started talking back and forth and talking about the curriculum or the books, do you think any of the parents even knew any of this existed prior to the last 24 months or 2 years with COVID? Or do you think that just was the catalyst that started everything?
I think that's what started everything. I honestly think we really didn't. I didn't know. I didn't know until I went to that one board meeting. I heard a little bit, through the group text messages and whatnot. But again, I didn't know anything until I went, and I was just shocked. And yeah, I would say, yeah, this is when we found out.
So going to that one board meeting was what just made you realize, hey, what I'm seeing and hearing and from all these other parents, it's really true. They're not making this stuff up.
Right. And it just, I mean, like the stories were just insane.
Yeah, when you start looking at your kids' stuff, and like you said, the parents are like, did you hear what I heard? I don't know if you heard about the Kentucky school that sent out letters to the parents and said, please don't look at the curriculum on the computer when your kid's working.
They said that?
Yes. They asked the parents not to watch.
Wow. We actually had similar email that was sent out, and it was leaked. So it was sent to all the principals, and it was literally said to hide.
There we go.
The whatever it was, to hide it from Canvas, so we don't see it. Hide the word hide, deceit, and then they were making fun of some of the parents because they said, "Hey, we were having issues and some of the language, blah blah blah." So, and this director literally told the principals to hide the curriculum or material from the parents.
And use different words for like homophobic. They had to use a different word just so the parents don't get, because they don't understand and they're misinformed. And
so basically, basically, Izzy, you're saying that the administration, they were trying to put words in the principals' mouths on how to word it so the parents wouldn't get feeling all weird.
Yes.
I remember those emails. That was probably 9 or 10 months ago. We saw all kinds of them come across. I'm like, and my sister-in-law, my wife's from St. Louis, so my sister-in-law and mother-in-law still live there. So I called my sister-in-law. I said, hey, Nick, is this really happening? She's like, oh yeah. She's like, I'm on part of this Rockwood group, and she said, this is what the teachers send out, and the parents are seeing. This is what the teachers are actually proposing to teach, etc. And I was blown away, man. I could not believe.
Yeah, you literally have to look at that email. I mean, it's just Natalie was the person who sent it. It is, and we made national news because of it. And it was in one of the, I'm assuming one of the teachers decided to take a picture of it because she was not okay, and took a picture of it and leaked it to the parents. And she's a parent, right? And she was not okay with it, and like, look what's happening, So
do you find, Izzy, that a lot of parents still don't even know about that, are not aware of it, or really don't care? I mean, it seems like where we are, we've been talking about a lot of these issues for months and months and months, and it seems like the percent of people that are actually involved and are in the trenches and in this fight, that we're still in the minority. Is it that way down there too?
You think so? It doesn't feel like that here. It feels like there are a lot more parents are just waking up and not okay with what's happening. And I can tell you though, going to Canvas and just knocking on door, for my campaign, the taxpayers, I say the older folks that their kids graduated and left had no idea.
That's the thing. Yes, the older people.
Right. So we were telling them, what their tax money was going for. And I mean, they were shocked. So a lot of them did know what was happening because we made national news, a couple of times. And, but I was shocked to the amount of people that didn't even know what was happening. Again, we have such a great reputation as a district. Rockwood is one of the best school districts. And so that's what they thought.
So what is February 2020 to February 2022 really shown you about where our public schools are today versus 5 years ago?
Why February 2022?
Well, we just finished up. I mean, March 2022. So all this started in February 2020.
He's a month behind.
So just say through March of 2022. I mean, what has that really shown you about the schools versus where they were 5 years ago?
Well, I mean, again, so 5 years ago, I had a first grader, and it was good. I mean, we didn't have any issues. My daughter was thriving. We still actually have that same teacher today, and she's an amazing teacher. 2020, again, it was awful for everybody, right? Throughout, I mean, this is a national thing, it wasn't just really the entire world. So I have to give them some grace there, right? Now the way they went about it, though, they would only cherry pick some of the data, right? They wouldn't just like, okay, let's look at everything. We went to them with all kinds of issues and problems about the masks, the vaccines, and everything. And they wouldn't look at what we're bringing to them. I mean, it wasn't really me, just everybody else. I wasn't involved until November. I was taking care of my mother. And they wouldn't look at everything else. They would only look at this one thing. And I don't even know where they were getting their data. And they were like, no.
Probably the CDC.
Right. And, and I'm just like, okay, why can't we just look at the rest of the world? Right. And we were just way behind. So, yeah, I mean, like 5 years ago, I was one of those people I just trusted. I didn't think we had any issues. And, I've never voted in a school board election because I trusted.
Me either. I can't say I've ever voted in a school board election. I voted in national elections, but I don't ever recall voting. I never saw the need. I never knew. Right. If I were to have voted, Izzy, I would have voted for the person that had the most signs. That I didn't know all this stuff existed. Yeah. General Flynn says local action creates national impact. That's at the bottom scroll of our bar right there. But I didn't know about all this political stuff starting at the school level, and I don't think 90% of Americans did. Nope. I know most of our parents. Yeah, I know most of our friends with kids didn't, and a lot of them still don't. You wouldn't believe, since we started doing all these interviews, how many people have reached out to me, messaged me, and they live where we live. Hey, who do we vote for? Hey, who do you recommend voting for? I mean,
I do that too. I get that too, and it's insane.
And then they're like, hey, thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for all the hard work. But it's like they don't even know. And some of them are people with kids. Some of them are people that have kids that are gone, married. But I'm just like, man, this is an absolute wake-up call for the whole country. And
it really is a movement.
Oh, it is a movement. That's a great word.
Yeah.
That's a great word. But, getting back to teachers, I think most teachers are they mean well. They're great. I think they're far underpaid. My parents were both school teachers. And I think they have a hard job right now. And I don't know, do you think their hands are tied by the administration? Do you think they're tied with the state and federal levels? What do you think is the issue with the teachers if they're having problems? Yes.
I honestly think our teachers are having to wear so many different hats right now, So and I'm talking about our district. I don't know what's happened in other districts, I haven't really been paying attention, especially in the last couple of months. Just during COVID and everything else, they had to police the children with the masks, right? And that took time away from just that core, teacher, student, academic time. It took away from that because they had to police the kids with the masks. And then on top of that, you throw this DEI stuff, diversity, equity, inclusion. And then you throw the social emotional learning, and then you throw like all this other things that the teachers have to do outside of teaching, right? I don't think they signed up for all of that. When they decided to become teachers, they wanted just to teach, is what I understood. I mean, like from my mother's experience, my mother was a teacher. She did it because she wanted to teach, And
they didn't have all this other garbage when you were a kid over in Iraq.
No. No, we didn't. We were just told that the U.S. was, this devil, and they're going to come and kill us all and take our oil. But obviously that didn't happen, But even with that, people are always are shocked. How do you speak English? Like, because it was required in school, And now, like, you go to our schools and our teachers are being pulled to learn about things that have nothing to do with reading, writing, arithmetic, math or spelling or, none of that.
Yeah. And I didn't realize they were signing up to be psychologists and cultural molders and all this stuff. So you mentioned the DEI. Kind of give your idea on that. I know that my perspective of DEI ends up with, one of the things being equality, and that's equal outcomes, not helping everybody get to an equal education. So just give me your thoughts on that.
So my thoughts, I mean, again, diversity, equity, inclusion. Here I am. How diverse do I need to be? I mean, let's talk about outcomes. I was never offered that special program or a free bus or a free meal. I literally had to do it all on my own. We didn't have the programs and the resources there that we have here. And it just mind-boggling to me that here, we do have the programs and the resources. And then some of the people complain about, oh, we don't have the same outcome. Well, you didn't do the work. You've got to do the work. You can't just I can't just hand you, oh, here, you made it when you didn't even make it. I mean, think about the teachers. And if we just get the kids to graduate from one level to another, how is that fair to those teachers when you have children that couldn't make it? I was talking to a professor the other day, and he was telling me about some of the students, by the time they get to him, it's like they can't even spell. They don't know how to read.
But they get moved on through the system. Right.
Well, I saw something today. They were talking about, some schools, graduating, multiple valedictorians, 6, 7, 8 valedictorians instead of, when I went to school, there was one. And it didn't matter if you were a man or a woman or male or female, a boy or girl, whoever was the smartest with the best grade point was valedictorian. You didn't have to have, 3 of them based on different genders or different skin tones or whatever. It's just whoever performed the best.
But you have to have that social, emotional consideration.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be a part of it.
Let me ask you this, Izzy. Do you think most teachers out there today are against that? Or do you think they're okay with it and are on board?
Honestly, the majority I've talked to, they're completely against it. They literally just want to teach.
Oh, that's awesome.
Is it being driven down by the administration?
That's what I'm told. Yes.
And is it being driven down to the administration by state and federal funding?
That's what we're trying to find out.
Okay.
That's what I'm told, though. Yeah.
Okay.
And because, when people are reaching out, so we had this development day a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know if you saw those, we made news again, and it was blocks, you had the top blocks, which was if you're privileged, if you were in this, if you checked any of the top blocks, which is if you were a man, if you were between the age 20 and 40-ish, if you were middle to upper class, if you had European features, if you were a Christian, and if you were a cisgender, and then the bottom blocks were the targeted, literally said, privileged and targeted. And it was, the women, non-European features, all the religions other than Christianity, and
minority.
Yes, yeah, minority. And I was just like, I checked some of the boxes up top and some of the boxes in the bottom. What does that? Where do I go with this?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't get it. Where it happened to science, technology, English, math? It's just seriously. Where did all that go?
In the movie.
Have you heard of the movie? Have you seen
ahead.
the movie? Have you heard the movie? Whose Children Are They?
I've heard a lot of great things about it.
Oh,
I have not seen it.
My gosh, if you haven't seen it, we tell our audience, if you haven't seen it, do everything you can to see it. It is an incredible documentary, and I'll just say it real quick. We saw it 2 weeks ago last night. It was 2 years in the making. Several educators stepped back from education, professors, administrators, and they said, we're done with public schools. We're going to create this documentary.
Wow.
They put this thing together, and literally we about fell out of our seats with some of the stuff that we saw that they were exposing at the public school level, talking about the unions. It was just absolutely, you said the word mind-boggling a while ago. It was beyond mind-boggling.
Wow.
So,
yeah, and one of the students had talked about, it was a school, I think, in the Oakland area. I don't know if it was truly Compton, but she said that she had went to a school and there was no way she was going to succeed because everything was just about the union and the teachers were poor, poor quality. But then the union got moved out, and that school in the next several years, got to be one of the top schools in the area until the union infiltrated back in, and then it went back to basically a slum school. So there's a lot of good points in there, and the whole thing scares the crud out of you because there's so much that what they said is it parallels with what we've already been seeing. And I don't know if you've seen the 45 steps, the 45 steps to communism. And that started back in the 50s. We've already checked off.
I come from a country.
Yeah. And we've already checked off a bunch of them. And one of them was to get to the kids, change their, go to gender identity. I can't remember them all, but just basically dumb the kids down.
Yeah, that was all covered in this movie by educators, by administrators, and I was blown away. So Izzy, I'm going to ask you this: if public schools stay on the same path right now that they're on today, and it stays on this path for the next 5 to 10 years, tell us what you think will be the outcome.
I obviously think this is really, it's going to hurt our generations, right? We have teachers that I met with a group of teachers. They are so, frustrated with what's going on. They never thought that they wanted to. One of them said, I wake up every day and I cry and I look for jobs. And she said, I just can't do this. Every single day I wake up and cry and look for jobs because she's like, I can't do this. And I go to school and she said, I feel like I'm teaching generations of, literally, she used the word cowards.
Wow.
Yeah. And you look at it again, it's taken away that time, the other interesting fact though, too, and I have to put this there, I know it's not even really, people said that people like me are anti-public schools, right? I'm like, where do you get that? I love our district. That's why I am running, right? Because I care about our district to bring positive change, or just go back to what we used to do, which is just stick to academics. That's it. The rest of it should be on us, the parents. Don't worry about the rest of it. You're not certified to be a counselor unless you are a counselor. You're not a dietitian. You're not all this other things. All the rest of the stuff is on us, parents, not the school. We're trying to help you, literally help you, so then you don't have to deal with everything else.
So this teacher that you're referring to that would wake up every morning crying, I'm curious, is this teacher a long-term veteran teacher, or is this like a young, fairly new out of college teacher?
She's new.
She's new, really?
Yeah. And then some of the veteran teachers I also met with, and they are mind-boggled by what's going on. And some of them said they never thought they would, want to retire before their time or whatever, but some of them are thinking about it.
So you said you talked to the teachers, and that's one thing that I wanted to just ask. If you're on the board, I know maybe I'm stepping outside the boundaries, but to close that gap between you and what's going on inside the walls of that school, I think a board member needs to know the climate, the pulse of what is going on, what the teachers are thinking. Do they feel pressured? Are they being manipulated? You need to know their story for you to regulate what that superintendent, if he needs to stay employed.
Right. And I think that's what we it's kind of missing right now, is that disconnect, I guess, if you would say. It feels like people are not asking or the board or the district, or not going to the teachers and asking, hey, what do you need from us? Or how are you doing? What can we do to help you? They're just dumping all these things on them, and now they have to be the counselor, the dietitian, the teacher, and the mother. The babysitter, right? And it's a lot. That's what I'm talking about, different hats that they have to wear. It really is a lot.
I'm going to ask a question on this one, Izzy, that I haven't asked anybody else in any of our other interviews, and we interviewed a lot of people. Do you think a lot of the school district administrators and higher-ups know the parents are onto them? Do they know the game is over?
Yes, they do. I mean, it literally is a movement. I have never seen anything like that. I have, when I went and filed, I mean, I have over 300 volunteers.
Wow.
It's unheard of, right?
Wow.
300.
Holy cow.
Yes.
Okay.
I have over 200 donors. It's unheard of for a school board.
So just out of curiosity, I know you have another really great conservative candidate running too. Does she have good support backing her as well?
I think so, yes.
Good.
I mean, I honestly been so focused on my own race. I haven't even been, checking out or reaching out to other people. I know that it's getting a little crazy out there, and some people are stealing my signs, and I know they align with the other two candidates, and it's just, I mean, the NEA themselves put a post, the RNEA, Rockwood NEA, put a post out there. They said they don't condone what those people are doing. Yes.
Of course.
Interesting.
I mean, it is. And no one should condone that, right? And that's what I would never, if you decide to put a flag or a sign of a unicorn in your front yard, I would never, go and just pull it up and steal it and go. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. This is America. Like, and we live in the best country there is. This is America. And you choose to drive around and steal signs?
Well, we know that most conservatives and people that think like us don't do that. I mean, we just, we don't do that. That's another form of what I call cancel. I mean, people are getting canceled at every turn now, whether it's social media or friends on, whatever. But that's another form of cancellation. But I don't see conservatives doing that.
And they feel threatened. If they're
That's what I keep hearing. And then the whole cancel thing. Again, I've never heard that before. Someone called my ex-employer. I mean, I guess they didn't know that I had stepped down, since COVID. And they said, hey, you have an employee by the name Izzy. They called me Izzy Imig. They didn't even get my last name right. She's racist. So my ex-employer said, Izzy, as in the Arabic Izzy? Right. And hung up. And she called me right away, and I'm like, did you get the phone number? She's like, no, it was a no caller ID.
Imagine that.
Right.
Because they're scared.
And I'm just like, so
typical.
On one hand, they say I'm just a mom, right? I'm just a mom. That's what they're saying. So I shouldn't, I'm not qualified because I'm just a mom. On the other hand, they had an article about me, a hit piece, which I found out what that meant. I'm like finding out a lot of things with this stuff. A hit piece on the Post-Dispatch about me.
Who was
the St. Louis newspaper?
Yeah, who was the journalist that wrote it? Do you remember his name? Was it a he?
Oh, it's a she. It's Blythe. It's a weird name.
Okay.
Well, we can dig that up.
Well, there's one guy that has called all of this stuff that is going around on social media that's not in line with the left. Of course, I know how liberal St. Louis can be. This guy had an article that said all of this is considered coming from the Republican propaganda machine. It's so opposite. It's so opposite. It really is.
So tell us about the hit piece. Give us a little bit of background on that, Izzy.
The hit piece, she called me anti-equity. And I was like, how is that? Explain that to me, right? And then she said that I was backed by the conservative, blah, 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 and I'm like, who? I'm backed by the parents. I don't have any outside money. I have, 3 outside of the district? 3 donors out of the 200 and something. And they are still within the district. When you run a campaign, the first thing they tell you is to reach out to your friends and family. Most people have friends and family outside of the state, right? I didn't reach out to friends and family because I don't have any family, that could
that makes sense.
Donate. Right. And literally 3 of my friends donated that are within the district, but they care about what's going on. And the rest are all parents and taxpayers that are in our district. And she talked about how I am, anti-equity, aligned with one of the mayors in the area, Eureka Mayor, who is the most nonpartisan mayor there is. And he is very popular, very well liked, and she talked about how another, another reporter wrote something about me in his, I guess he does his own articles. and his name is Bill Hennessy. Have you heard of that name?
No, it's not the one I'm thinking of.
So he's very conservative. He is part of the district. He's a resident and he's a taxpayer. And he said, he kind of listed some of the books, and he said he kind of called them demons. I mean, some of the language he used, I don't really agree with. But he said, if you don't vote for Izzy Imig, you are screwed. Plain and simple.
That's
right?
an easy way of putting it.
So, and then she was just like, oh, she did not, denounce his endorsement. I'm like, I don't know the man. I don't know if that's an endorsement, right? He literally just expressed his freedom of speech, and put it in an article because that's what he does. And just like what she did, right? She expressed her freedom of speech and wrote negative things about me.
And she wrote stuff that was not true and you could prove is not true, which is liable in my opinion.
So
absolutely.
Talk to us real quick, Izzy, about when we had a conversation last week. We talked about Crayola crayons. Talk to me about that.
Oh boy. So I was one of our schools here decided to put a DEI committee, and there was a parent African-American family that, are on the committee. It's, they're a parent. The rest of them are just teachers. And then they picked the next darkest person, which is me, and they asked me to be on the committee. And, I was like, okay, sure, I'll check it out. I went to the first meeting, and, they started talking about Black History Month and Spanish History Month. And I just very kindly raised my hand and I said, I would like an Arabic History Month. There are only so many months of the school year. If you're getting a Spanish History Month and you're getting a Black History Month, I would like an Arabic History Month, right? Is it not fair? I guarantee you more people are going to come and say, I want an Irish History Month, a German History Month, whatever you come from. And so that was shut down quickly. And then we moved to another topic. And the one parent said she would like for every child to have what's called multicultural crayons. Again, I raised my hand. I never heard of those. I said, what's that? And then she said, the color brown doesn't come in one shade. They come in all shades of brown. So I said, what would that be called? Because to my 6-year-old, they'll still be brown. And why are we focusing on the color? Why can't diversity be, tell me about the kid who can't read until 2nd grade. Tell me about the kid who has autism. Tell me about the kid in a wheelchair. That's diversity to me. Why is it just the color? And why is it just black and white? What about my color?
So how was this topic that this lady brought up? How did other parents react to that?
There are no other parents. It's just me and her, the parents, and then the rest are teachers. You can tell we were still masked, and some of the teachers' eyes will light up every time she would say something and I answer her, because I can get away with it, where if they would answer, they will be called racist. And it just does, again, it doesn't, I don't see the value of teaching our children. There are, just focusing on the color. I don't understand it. And then they went on and on a tangent, and then I'm like, literally, you are teaching my daughters how to hate their father because he's white.
Yeah.
How about focusing on public speaking and entrepreneurship and finance and, some things that are going to be useful and beneficial to these kids as they get out in the work world. We can teach them about their character. Let's teach them about, kindness. Let's teach them about grit. Let's teach them about, there's that word again, grit, right there. I love it.
Oh, I just noticed that.
Patriots with grit. See, there we go. I love it.
Let's teach them that. Why are we just focusing on, you're lighter than I am, so then you're the oppressor and I'm the, how does that help?
Let's teach kids how to be resilient and to seize opportunity. Recognize opportunity and take it. Instead, they're teaching them to cower and will give it to you.
Right. Right. And that's what when I go to the high schools, that's literally what I tell the children. I'm like, listen, you are born in the best country there is. And it's funny, one time I had a student say, when I said that, I said, I would have loved to be born in this country. You are in the best country there is. I would wake up and kiss the ground every single morning if I were you. And one student said, well, as he's slouching back and had his cell phone next to him. So I said, the fact that you literally just said that to me as your speaker without raising your hand, without doing anything, you just, talk back. You are in the best country there is.
Yeah. That's
absolutely,
awesome.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, Izzy, in the last couple years, what changes have you seen? Obviously, you've seen changes that you don't like in the school, the administration, the students, the teachers, the board. What changes, good or bad? What changes, good or bad, have you seen, and what do you think you can help to improve as you move forward in this if you were to get elected?
Some of the good things, I think, again, we talked about it, the silver lining, which got the parents involved, right? I think we were all asleep. And so those are some of the great things, that whole parent movement. Some of the things that I think we really do need to work on is the whole communication, rebuild that trust, because the trust is broken, right? And transparency, we don't have that. We don't have that. No one knew I was part of the DEI committee.
There's that word again.
What's the word?
That's one common word in every single interview is transparency. That's one common word in all these interviews.
Yep.
It's crazy.
No one knew. Like when I was telling one of the parents, I had this committee, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, what committee? Why am I not part of it? And I was like, oh, exactly. Why is she not part of it? So, I think, again, some of the great things is that the parents are more involved now. And again, this should actually, the teachers and the district should be happy that the parents don't want to put everything on you. We're trying to partnership with you. I don't want to micromanage teachers. I am not a teacher. I don't want to be a teacher, right? What I want from my teacher, if you can teach that to my child, I should be able to see it, right?
100%.
Yes, that's literally what I want. I want my children to come to me, we're eating dinner and having a discussion. I don't want to be surprised. I want to know what I'm talking about. I want to answer my child the right things and not be surprised.
Well, I know a friend of mine lives in California, and you know how ultra liberal they are out there. And he and I had a conversation a few months ago about what the school districts were wanting parents to do out there. They were wanting the parents to sign affidavits or some legal document saying that they would not listen to, watch, or sit in on any of their kids' online remote learning during the pandemic.
That was same with Kentucky.
Yeah.
No way.
Yes.
That's like real stuff?
Yes. They didn't want the parents anywhere near the student or their own kid in their own home looking at or over their shoulder at what they were being taught.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's when you're like, okay, yeah, I need to be involved.
Well, yeah. So it's the opposite of what we're seeing. They want the parents to be disconnected so they can indoctrinate. And I don't know that every teacher is wanting to indoctrinate.
I don't think so.
The system is pushing them into a corner where they're having to basically be a traitor to the kids.
I think most teachers are good and mean well and are trying to do great jobs. I think they're being pushed, of course, from the upper level, just like that movie we saw. They talk about, the unions, some of the strongest, most well-funded, they called them cartels in America. And, and when you don't do what they say, then they want to ostracize the teachers and take actions against them.
What about the gal, the older gal that was... She said she chose not to be in the union, and she said it was just like a mob movie, had guys in suits show up at the school and ask her, so why don't you want to be in the union? And she thought she was going to be roughed up. Now, I think that might have been like Chicago or something.
I don't know where it was, but that was in that movie. Again, that movie, whosechildrenarethey.com. So,
yeah, I'm going to have to watch it.
For our viewers.
Teachers are dropping out of the NEA. I don't know if you heard that. That's what I'm hearing.
Yep, and a lot of schools did it. There's been like 38 states that have pulled out of that, 30-some states. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a local school district here says they choose to stay in it because they get good resources from it.
Resources and guidance.
Really?
Yeah. So they would rather have the power and the indoctrination instead of just separating.
Have you been on their website recently? You should go on their website recently. I mean,
the NEA?
Yeah.
I have not.
We will do that.
So
you should do that.
Izzy, I have never been to a school board meeting until May of 2021. And once I did that, we started going to health board meetings. Then we started looking into some other school board meetings, and we just started seeing patterns. And I saw things there that I never knew existed, like power and ego. And, you know, I had no idea that this was even a thing. I mean, school board members, school board presidents just acting as if they were almost godlike. So was it like that there? I mean, I know you only went to one meeting. Did you have that impression?
So the one meeting I went to, I was shocked they don't answer the people right away.
I think there's something in the procedures they can't.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So that I didn't know. And then after I filed, I started going to meetings because I wanted to know how they do things and how they run things. And again, I wouldn't say, I can't really throw our entire board under the bus. There are some of the personalities there I might not agree with, but there are great board members that we have that do actually reach out to the community and check on the community, get back to the people, but not all of them. And that's where, I mean, what you're saying is actually accurate, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was shocked at that. Like, you know, what we need to do is have some like a town hall meeting where, you know, sit down and just talk to each other.
You've said exactly what my brain was telling me. There's got to be a way that the board can sit down occasionally with the parents and be able to converse back and forth. So you get a feel, well, if you're on the board, they can get a feel for what you stand for, and you can answer why you feel that way. But you go to a board meeting, they may show the agenda up there, and you get one sentence, and you're like, what's this all about? And then they vote. And they've probably already had a backdoor meeting so that they're all going to be on the same page. And when they hold up your hand, you don't know if they prepared, if they truly understood what they were voting for.
Right.
We want to know so we can know if they need to go.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, that closed sessions, we're not part of. And we elect those people to represent. So, I mean, the hierarchy is the people or the taxpayers, the board, the district, right?
And yeah, exactly. And I've heard too from different schools, not all schools, some schools, the board members get bullied because when you go to school board school for the state, they tell you that, you need to support your superintendent. Yes, I get that, but you're still that person's boss. So Rockwood's now got a new superintendent that, from what I understand, is really pro DEI. Well, yes.
Oh, I see.
Well, that's what
we were told by the other candidate. So
in previous interview.
So if that's the case and you're against it, man, people that are against that stuff's they've got to stand their ground, and they're going to get pressured.
Right. Now, I am not against diversity. I am not against, teaching or giving the same, opportunity to everyone.
Yes.
We're not against that. We're literally trying to take that, not take it away off of their plate. Let us deal with it. You stick to just education and let us deal with the rest. I have not heard, to be honest with you, I've heard mixed messages about the new superintendent. My treasurer's wife actually was one of his principals. She said great things about him as an educator. That made me feel hopeful. I'm one of those people, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, right? I think he needs to have that full year. He's coming from Lawrenceville. I know it's just across the river. And Rockwood is a completely different, just within the Rockwood, we're completely different cultures here, I mean, we're a huge district, one of the biggest ones in Missouri. And so I guess we'll give him that before, we'll try to put him on a pedestal like some of the candidates did because of his color. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
I will for his
Yeah.
credentials, maybe.
I mean, aren't you all at Rockwood? Aren't you one of the more affluent school districts in the whole state?
Right.
I mean, I knew you're one of the largest, but I didn't know from a wealth standpoint where you all stood.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we are. And I mean, that's the thing. He's coming from Wentzville. He was there for 9 years, and I know some of the parents said some negative things, and it could be one of those things that he was there for so long, they're sick of him, right? Or it could be all the other things that they're talking about. Mm-hmm. But some of the teachers said great things about him, so I don't know, right? We don't know until he started the job.
Well, I'm
not going to go and say he's going to be the best of the best because he's a person of color.
Right.
One thing, Izzy, that's been kind of a common thread among several of our guests in our interviews, like you, have been the issues of the books in the schools.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are you guys having those issues at Rockwood also?
Yes. We are having those issues.
Where are parents on that?
So we have a really wide range, as you said earlier. I mean, St. Louis, we're not all on the same page. Again, within the Rockwood, you have 95,000 registered voters, 22,000 students. Like, we are a huge district. We have some people that will say, I'm sure you've seen some of the books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sickening.
Some people will say, yes. Some people will say, oh, I'm okay. I read. They actually literally put on their profile pictures, I read banned books, right? And then you have some people like me where nope, it has to be age appropriate. Our TV shows, our movies, our video games are all rated, PG, PG-13, rated R, whatever. Why can't we have those on books? I am not for banning. I come from a country where everything is banned. So I don't care if you go buy them off of Amazon and you want to read them to your child, that's your business.
Yep.
What I don't want is for my child to go browse through, the books in the library, and she browsed through a book about oral sex, and she's only 11 or 12 years. That's absolutely not okay.
And I can't see how people that are well educated, that have several initials after their names, mm-hmm. That have spent years and years in college and academics, I don't see how those people can be okay with it. It's beyond me that educated, smart people think that's okay.
That's literally what I'm struggling with.
So tell me this. How's that any different than we go to the school board members that vote for this to keep these books in there? We can get them in a library. They can go to the county library to get this stuff. It's available if the parents mm-hmm. want it. But what if we went to these parents and said, hey, we've got this pornographic magazine. We've got Playboy. Mm-hmm. We can show you in graphic detail, and we want your kids to read this. Go ahead and show it to your kids. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't do it.
No, I know. They wouldn't do it. It just, what's really crazy too, when the parents go to those board meetings and have to read some of those books, some of the lines, they literally have to spell out the words because YouTube or whatever, they wouldn't allow them to say.
Oh yeah, they'll censor them.
They censor them, but our children can read those books
and look at the
How
pictures.
Does that make sense?
And the board is fine with it, and the administration. That's what blows. I just went to a board meeting last month here locally to a huge school district. They voted 6-1 to keep them in. 6-1.
I think a lot of it is. I think they're afraid. Honestly,
they are afraid. They're cowards.
They're just afraid, to vote against them. I don't understand.
I'm not an attorney by any means, but that same school district hid behind the First Amendment, freedom of speech. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the ACLU came in and threw a fit. Mm-hmm. Well, the way I had read an article that under DOJ.gov, you can look at the Supreme Court ruling, and it says in there the distribution of any pornographic or obscene materials to children is punishable by law. So what he's been saying, you tear those pages out of that book and then go out to a basketball game and start handing them out to the kids,
you would
be arrested.
considered a pedophile.
Yeah, be arrested.
That's the word I've been saying. But yeah, board members voting to keep them in. So Izzy, I have a question.
Yeah.
Tell us about if I were to ask you, what is the one instance that made Izzy Imig say, I'm running for school board? What would be that one thing that you said, I've had enough, I'm throwing my hat in the ring, and I'm going to become a school board candidate at Rockwood?
The one thing, oh my gosh, I mean, where do I start? Now,
well, you don't have to say just one. You can say more.
It's the trust. It's the trust. I go back to that trust and transparency. I mean, that really. And then the communication part too, and it just, there's so much to it. So like literally, I mean, I can't just give you one, example. I went to help. I mean, when I went to that one board meeting and on my wedding anniversary, that's what I chose to do. I went to support my friend because her 2 little boys were speaking about the water fountains being shut down. And if they forget their water, they don't have water for the day. Now the water fountains are open now, so that's not an issue. But, I went to support the little boys. And when I was there and I saw one parent after another parent, and it was anywhere from masks to books to curriculum to, the whole email that came from that one, director. I mean, just so many different things. And I'm just like, and the one parent sat next to me, she's like, oh, we've been doing this for 19 months. I'm like, 19 months? Just stand there and you shout?
And they do nothing.
And nothing was done. So yeah, that's where I was, I need to go file.
The whole key comes back to look back several years, I don't know, 20, 30 years, or even 30 years. It was about training the kids to be successful, be literate, do the math, and I don't respectful. But we've talked about this in general. They're overreaching to the point of government controlled. They want to control your children, and they don't want you to have a say in it. And if people don't believe that, they need to start doing a little research on the Marxism and communism, because it's all fallen into play, and they're controlling our kids' minds. I mean, there's no reason to start teaching kids in kindergarten about the differences in skin color. Make it invisible. Because I've seen around here, I mean, when you see black kids and white kids playing in the street, they don't think about this. They're just loving their buddy,
Yep.
But they go to school and then they get turned on their buddy.
Right. And the same thing is happening with the teachers.
Yeah.
I mean, because some of the teachers are against what's going on, and teachers are turning against each other. It's so sad. I mean, I just don't get it.
Izzy, I'm gonna throw out something here. You've probably heard about all the parents being called domestic terrorists by the DOJ and the FBI. What kind of parent interaction have you seen at the school board meetings in Rockwood, and have you witnessed them as being domestic terrorists?
I have not seen anyone that would just, I find that, again, really mind-boggling to me. I talked to one of my friends who works for the FBI, and I said, I mean, do they really go after parents because they're advocating for their children? And I mean, she said, Izzy, do you think we have the manpower to do that? I mean, we have enough problems to worry about, or real problems, literally what the words she used, real problems to worry about.
I wondered about that, and I wondered how much of that FBI, DOJ, parents as domestic terrorists was media induced, because we know when the media gets a hold of something, they can put the fear of God in everybody, and all of America, except common sense conservatives, know that it's all a bunch of bunk.
Well, that was the teachers union put pressure on the Biden administration to do that.
Oh yeah,
and they turned that out to the public within like a week. I mean, immediate response.
They did?
Yeah, show her the shirt.
Oh hey, so like. You like this shirt? Supporter of parents as domestic terrorists against tyrannical school boards.
Go the other way.
Oh my gosh.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I do see it.
We had to come out with that.
Hilarious.
We actually have that shirt up on our website, but we've had a lot of play on that bad boy. We've had a lot of fun with it.
That's hilarious. I think that there was a parent that had a sign in front of his house that says FBI most wanted parent or something like that.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is good.
Yeah.
We may have to add that to our list.
Well, and
Yeah,
have you heard about the controversy with Rockwood at least posting the number to turn people in?
I did. Yeah, I did. That was really disheartening. I have to say there were a couple of incidents where I went to board meetings and a lot of disrespectful words were used from, just the patrons or just the people. I know they're frustrated. I get that. And one incident was a student, actually. He went and shared and I can send you that link so you can watch it. So he got up there, and it took a lot of courage, right? Because it's a student, it's a high school student. A lot of them showed up. It was a December meeting, and they got on, and they got up there and they shared their story. It was anywhere from masks to losing their friends to suicide. And this student talked about how, he lost his friend, and, and then right after he did that and went and sat with his friends, a dad got up there and he talked about how he's a scientist, and he talked about how masks there were studies that show that masks lower suicide rate. Literally said that out loud.
Well, the data doesn't show that because suicide rates are extremely high right now.
Right. So the student, people were appalled, right? They were like, what? I know he's supposed to have his own time to talk, whatnot. The student shouted BS. And, and the scientist kept talking, and the board president, she said, officer, get him out. She paused the meeting, and she got the officer to take the student out, to escort the student out, because he shouted that word, the two words, and so all his friends followed him, and I went after him. I left with the students, and my heart was broken, right? I cannot believe we failed that child. We failed him. We failed him. We, the adults, failed that child. And I looked back, and I'm like, some of the parents that got up there, or the taxpayers, and they shared their frustration or opinion. They used bad words, and I don't condone that. I told the student, and I said, if you want people to take you seriously, you cannot shout bullshit, right? You literally have to be careful of the words you use, whatnot. He's a senior, and then I found out that he was suspended
for that.
Yes.
Yet they vote to keep the books in the library of pornography, oral sex.
Right.
And there's a bunch of books, racist books that are using the F word. And there's cop killer books and all that stuff.
So they haul this poor kid out of the board meeting, but yet they allow this other nonsense to stay in the school library.
Right.
No.
Right. And that's what it was, again, that mind-boggling. I was just shocked what happened. And then and I'm just, we failed that child, right? This goes on, this is falls on both the parents, I wouldn't say the parents, the taxpayers, and the board and the district. I cannot believe, they did that to him. The courage that took, right, for this child to come to a board meeting that he's never been to, and had a speech and went and spoke, right, about his friend that he lost to suicide. He was frustrated. And then you have this man who I found out he actually goes to every board meeting, and he has his N95 up to his eyeballs.
Looks like a pelican with a big old thing up there. Looks like a big old freaking pelican.
Right.
Yes.
And this man literally called them, the high schoolers, after they shared their story, a bunch of ignorant people. He told the board to don't listen to those ignorant people, listen to the smart scientist. Literally said that about himself. I'll have to send you the link.
Unbelievable. But the board president didn't have him removed, I assume, correct?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Actually gave him more time after she.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, that's the way that a lot of board presidents roll.
Right. So I was really shocked, and I felt for that student. But again, I told him, if you want the world to take you seriously, we can't just shout, right? Like, you had your time. No one was shouting. So you have to be fair, and we have to teach our children, okay, we want the world to take us seriously. We can't just stand there and shout. I know it's frustrating. I get it. But kicking him out and then get suspended? Really?
Yeah, I'd like for you to send me that link when you get done.
Yeah,
I'd love to see that.
I will absolutely send that to you. Another incident I wanted to kind of touch base on was, how confusing it was for the children and the students. I mean, all the students, really, most of the students. Even my own, she was 9 at the time, now she turned 10, fourth grader, said, who is above the law, right? I said, no one is above the law. And she said, but our school is, or our district is. And I said, what are you talking about? So she said, well, you told us the attorney general, said the masks or the mandate is over, right? But we still have to wear it. So our school is above the law.
And they may, I don't know if they got sued for that or not.
Yeah, there was a lawsuit. But so I took this, again, I'm like a deep thinker, and I went and I talked to some of the, my friends, and I'm like, can you ask your child, what do they think about this? Same thing. They're like, oh yeah, this is so confusing. We teach our children to obey and follow the law and obey the law, yet we are not following the law. So I understand their own entity, whatever, they can set their own policies and whatnot. But this is the attorney general, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How he's saying that mandate is lifted, but we're cherry picking our data, and no, we're going to follow this data instead of not that. I mean, it was just insane.
Yeah, and I know over here most of the school districts got handed piles and piles of studies that contradict what the CDC was saying, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of it. And I guarantee you, the health departments, they are just sticking with the FDA and the CDC and their agenda, because I think they're scared to step outside of that. They can always say, well, we follow the CDC, so this is the way we're going to go. So I kind of want to change gears real quick. Okay. Where do you stand with transgender athletes, transgender males playing girl sports, vice versa?
I think what needs to happen is that they need to have like 2 things. This is a really hot topic, and I know a lot of my friends and I coach basketball. I coach girls basketball, and we played against boys before. Boys are faster, stronger, period. And they destroyed us, and they were friendly games. They destroyed us. And I always tell my girls, hey, we're going to have a friendly game with one of our, teams that we're friends with. They know they're playing against boys. So, okay, they're going to be faster and stronger. That's it. What needs to happen is that we need to have like a women's sport, like a legit women's sport. We're wired differently, or we are just built differently. That's talk about science. This is, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. They don't want to follow the science with that.
Right. And
that's a great point.
We can have this other thing that is open for boys and girls. We can have that open thing, right? But I think girls should stick to girl sports. It's a women basketball team. It's a girl basketball team. It's not, you know what I mean? I mean, like, I don't find it fair. I think I would be really outraged if I had to compete against a man, knowing that they're going to be faster and stronger. I personally would not be. I mean, I don't think it's fair.
Well, and then if you look at it, let's just say Misha came back and said, okay, we got boys sports, girls sports. Now schools are going to have to carry transgender sports. Now we still have a problem. You take a transgender boy playing against a transgender girl, Now you still have the mismatch.
That's true.
So it causes a much larger problem. And so that's all I'm going to say about that. But I wanted to see where you were at with that.
I mean, don't you agree with me? I mean, they are faster and stronger.
100%.
Yeah, totally. Yep, totally.
I mean, it's been that way for decades. Men's sports, women's sports, girls' sports, boys' sports. I mean,
right.
why change it?
Yep.
I mean, it's
We're
worked.
all wired differently. It is what it is.
Yep.
Totally. So, Izzy, April 5th is the election at Rockwood. You wake up on April 6th, and you're the new school board candidate for Rockwood School District in Eureka, Missouri. What's the first change you're going to propose as a new school board member?
Have a town hall kind of meetings.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
We got to break the boundaries or the barriers.
Yeah. Yes, and that should be the first thing. We need to hear each other. We need to that divide that we have, and school board elections supposed to be nonpartisan, but everything is literally partisan, right? It's just so sad and disheartening.
So you get that transparency, that communication going. You get the parents involved. I think one of the other key things is for school board members, once they become involved with the parents, is to try to get more in. Power by numbers.
Right.
Just get them in there and get them involved and say everybody gets a duty,
I agree. And I think more are getting involved. And I was getting text messages from a neighbor in school, and they were saying, we saw that you were involved with the PTO for blah, blah, blah years. We decided, and I did it even when I worked full time. I would chair like a big event or whatnot. I always wanted to be involved with my children. And they say, there are studies out there, they say, if you are involved with your children will most likely be successful, and that's what I wanted to do. And, I'm able to do it. So why not? So some of the neighboring schools were saying, we saw that and we decided to, be part of the PTA, whatever it's called there. And I'm so proud that a lot of people are like, yeah, we just, we've kind of been asleep and we've just kind of like been trusting. And now we want to be plugged in. We want to be involved. And I love that.
So, Izzy, you were born and raised under the Saddam Hussein regime. Mm-hmm. You were pulled in to be an Arabic interpreter for the U.S. Army. You took a bullet for the U.S. Army. Mm-hmm. You have been through a whole lot. You moved here. You became a U.S. citizen. You married someone in the U.S. Army. Obviously, you're in kids. So you've gone through a lot of. You're one tough cookie. You're a one tough girl. So my point is, you've gone through a lot of. You've taken a lot of hits. You've taken a lot of shots. Mm-hmm. How has that been compared to what you're taking as a school board candidate from people in your surrounding area?
That's a really good question. So when I went to file, I said, because I reached out to people who had, filed or ran a campaign before, I said and I remember just from last year how bad it was. They said it's so ugly. So I said, how bad is it? Is it worse than getting shot in the stomach? That's literally what I said. And they said, no, it's just and I said, a lot of words, they get ugly on social media, blah, blah, blah. And I said, words don't hurt me. That's what I said, unless they get to my children. I am literally shocked by just, again, the actions that are people taking just because you don't agree with me or you don't want to vote for me. How about you just choose not to vote for me? Why not? Why do you want to take it a step further and start making things up and put it on social media? And why just drive around and steal my signs, right? Why? How about you just don't vote for me and leave it at that?
They're threatened. They don't want they don't want you visible.
That is so that cancel. You're talking about cancel culture.
Yep. Yeah.
That's what they're trying to do is cancel me, right? But they are the same people that are for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here I am diverse. You know what I mean? But they are, because I don't fit their narrative. So they're going to try to cancel me. And that's shocking to me. I am so shocked by the behavior. What they model to their children, I cannot believe that. And whether you do it on social media or you do it with your friends, your children are always watching.
Right, that's true. Well, Izzy, I want to say on behalf of Randy and me and our audience, our viewers, we truly have enjoyed this interview. This has been one of the best ones so far. We thank you for your time. We thank you for sharing.
I can't let you cut it off yet.
Okay.
I need to know. I'm dying to know. So what it felt like to be shot.
Oh,
I have to
I
know.
didn't feel it. Okay, so I felt the pressure.
Okay.
I did not know I was shot until someone told me that I was.
Was it
I
kind of
looked
off to
down.
the side, or was it dead center?
It was a little bit to the side,
oh,
and it
okay.
went through. Yeah, and I didn't really. It was such a chaotic day, and we were trying to get the one guy that was shot behind the Humvee. And when they said you're bleeding, and I saw my own blood, and I passed out. So I didn't really feel the gunshot.
Okay.
I did feel the after, waking up from surgery, and
Okay.
it was not good. It was
Okay.
painful.
Well, I want to
Right.
thank you for helping Iraq
Yeah,
and the
thanks for your
United
service.
States. And United
You're
States
very-
has become better since you've came over.
oh yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Yes,
Really. I mean,
absolutely.
like, honestly, I'm beyond grateful, and that's why, America had offered me so much as an immigrant. I mean, I am a U.S. citizen now, and I have been a U.S. citizen, and I just feel not just my 3 daughters or the reason why I'm running. I mean, the fact that the U.S. had offered me so much, and it's my duty to give back, and why not do it through, a school board? And your duty is to vote, right?
yep.
That's the place to start. Well, Izzy, thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining us. I'm going to tell you, like I tell all of our guests, our hope and prayers for you that when you wake up on
Thank
April
you.
6th, you're the newly elected school board member at Rockwood. We applaud you and praise you for what you're doing, all you've gone through, and for standing up for our kids. And we just wish you the best luck, and thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. This
All
was
right.
fun. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
There you go, everybody. Another great school board candidate interview with Izzy Imig from the Rockwood School District in Eureka, Missouri, down by St. Louis. Randy, did you like that story?
I love everything about that, man.
She
That's-
was fantastic. She is one tough chick, man. I tell you what, all she's been through. If she can go through all that, she can handle a school board and a school district. Don't you think?
yeah, she can take a hit.
Wow. Want to thank you guys for being with us tonight. Feel free to join us at patriotswithgrit.com/recommend, where you can go there and recommend other great conservative leaders and entrepreneurs for us to interview, or if you have other suggestions for great topics, we'd like to cover those, or you'd like for us to cover, we'd be glad to do that. Also, feel free to find us on social media, and this podcast will be up on our podcast platform here in the next few days. So thank you for listening. I'm Darren Ross at Patriots with Grit, where we bring you truth bombs and guidance from conservative leaders and entrepreneurs to help you hear truth, be bold, and live free. See you on the next episode.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us today and realizing this is the best time in history to be alive. It's people like you that keep America on track, so please let your friends know about Patriots with Grit. The more you help us grow, the more we'll continue delivering truth bombs and guidance from conservative leaders and entrepreneurs. Right now, head over to patriotswithgrit.com and drop us your name and email, and you'll get immediate access to your free ebook valued at $27, titled How Patriots, Conservatives, and Small Business Entrepreneurs Just Like You Will Save America. Plus, you will be the first to know when we release new episodes and content. Also, make sure you subscribe and share this episode on social media. Now, go out there, hear truth, be bold, and live free.